But let's wait because I'm not, I bet you the volume is up and we're gonna get a ricochet effect.
So we're waiting for.
We're practicing the eightfold path even as we, but let's wait because I'm not. Oh, see, there we go. Okay, so now that one's muted so it doesn't create a cycle.
Okay,
Oh, good.
so don't move too far away.
All right. There we go.
So we're going to look at the Noble Eightfold Path today. You could see up on your screens, I believe. This is Bhante Sujato's translation of the analysis of the path. And this is in the Connected Discourses of the Buddha. You can see up here, it says SN 45.8. So it's in the Samyutta Nikaya. It's in the section, the fifth book of the Samyutta Nikaya, which is the great book, or Bhante Sujato calls it the collection of discourses on the path. So it starts with the Noble Eightfold Path, the teachings that focus on the Noble Eightfold Path. And this is the analysis of the path, and it's defining each path factor. It explains each path factor. And so if you want to get a definition, it's like a definition of these factors. And then each factor, you'll find much more about them in the suttas. But this is if you want the definition of them, how the Buddha defines them, this is the place. And we're going to make some comments on it. Nyanaka is going to read Bhikkhu Bodhi's, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. I will read Bhante Sujato's, and we'll both be making some comments. And if you have any questions as we go along, please put them in the chat. And then at the very end, if we're going to have a discussion, I'm just going to turn the recording off so people can just feel free to, discuss more freely. So it's the Vibhaṅgasutta, and this is at Sawati, and this is the Buddha speaking. Mendicants, I will teach and analyze for you the Noble Eightfold Path. Listen and apply your mind well. I will speak. Yes, sir, they replied. So I have here this Atangiko, and that's a Arya Atangiko Mago. So the Atangiko is 8 parts, 8 limbed or eightfold. So mostly we hear eightfold as a translation, but that's just variations on that. And Maga is also way, road, path, track, way. So you also will hear way as a common translation. And so there's some little bit of different nuance to those translations. So it's good to see how other translators are choosing their wording. And so the bhikkhus reply, yes, sir. The Buddha said this. And what is the Noble Eightfold Path? That is right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion. Would you read how Bhante Bodhi has translated that list?
It doesn't. It does dot dot.
Oh, he has the ellipses.
So
So so
But
we'll come across how he translates it differently when we go factor by
oh,
factor.
here, I can just read down.
Oh, no, no, that's okay. We'll
Right
just
view,
go.
right intention, right speech, right action,
Okay.
right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So there's the that went by quickly. We'll go one by one. So, and what is right view? Samaditi. We have that right here. Right view, correct outlook, correct belief. You've probably heard it as right understanding also. This is a common, I think I came across that first. But view, ditti, has to do with seeing. I think it's a participle, some past, how does it? Some ditti is
A belief or this is
but it has to do with sight and seeing as well.
yeah.
Ditti. So that's in English also we have this concept of a view, or if I see, I say I see means I understand. So it's interesting how the language is similar in that way. So samaditi is knowing about suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, the practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. So this is dukkha jnanam, the knowledge of dukkha, dukkha samudaya jnanam, the knowledge of the origin. Dukkha nirode jnanam, the knowledge of the ending or the cessation. Dukkha nirodha gamini patipada jnanam, padati padaya jnanam. So this is the knowledge of the path leading to the ending of suffering. So that sounds really familiar, doesn't it? So what is that? That's the Noble Eightfold Path. So you can see how right view is within the Four Noble Truths. It's the fourth Noble Truth. And within right view is the Four Noble Truths. So they kind of fold into one another. And there's a sutta in the middle-length discourses called Right View. And this is Venerable Sariputta is expounding on right view, and he has 16 ways of understanding right view. And the Noble Eightfold, the Four Noble Truths is included in that. But it starts out with understanding the wholesome or the skillful and the unwholesome or the unskillful and their roots. So it's understanding what is unwholesome, which is basically not keeping the precepts. There's actually 10 courses, which is a detailed explanation of the precepts. And so if you keep the precepts, you're not, well, the root is greed, hate, and delusion. So if you're motivated by greed, hate, and delusion, that is unskillful, basically. So anyway, so there's 16 ways of understanding right view, and right view is basically the Four Noble Truths, but within each path factor of the so it's kind of reinforce or they're integrated in one another. It's kind of holographic, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you want to look at the detail, you can look at Majjhima Nikaya 9. This is a really deep explanation of right view. And it's focused more on dependent origination. You'll see all the factors of dependent origination in that explanation. So this is called right view, the Four Noble Truths, according to this definition. And what is right? Oh, how does Bhante Bodhi say that?
And what is right view? Knowledge of suffering, knowledge of the origin of suffering, knowledge of the cessation of suffering, knowledge of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. This is called right view.
And what is right thought? And that's Samma Sankappo. And this is correct intention, right volition, is according to this dictionary here. Correct intention, having right volition. So it's defined as this is the thought of renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. So we have ne kama sankappo. So this is the thought of giving up sensual pleasures, it says. Abhyaya pada sankappo. That's kind intention. Avihingsa sankappo. That's harmlessness. There's a question mark there, but that's how Bhante Sujato is translating it, non-harming. And how does Bhante Bodhi translate that one?
Let's see.
I think he says right intention.
Right intention, intention of renunciation, intention of non-ill will, and intention of harmlessness.
Can you hear well enough? Is that okay? All right.
Oh, good, good.
All right. This is called right thought. Samawacha. And what is right speech? Speech is pretty straightforward. Correct speech, speaking properly. Musawa, Veramani, Pisunaya, Wachaya, Veramani, Parusaya, Wachaya, Veramani, Sampapalapa, Veramani. Avoiding speech that is false, divisive, harsh, or nonsensical. Sampapalapa is the translation of that is useless speech, frivolous speech. Anyway, how does Bhante Bodhi translate this?
Right speech.
Yes.
Abstinence from false speech, abstinence from divisive speech, abstinence from harsh speech, and abstinence from idle chatter.
Idle chatter, that's the only one that's really that different.
I find that one really valuable. It's like you're wasting gas. If you're just sitting in your car with it idling, it's the engine's running. It's a waste of energy and effort. So idle chatter is the same.
Oh, I forgot to mention with the right thought or right intention, if you want to look up about this, there's a wonderful sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, and it's Majjhima Nikaya 19. And the Buddha talks about when he divided it's Dvaita Vitaka Sutta, or two kinds of thought, and he divided the thoughts into what was harmful and what was beneficial. And so he sees in himself uh, the opposites of these of right, the wrong thought, incorrect thought. Instead of nekama, what's arising is sense desire, and instead of right and good, this is non ill will. Ill will is arising instead of harmlessness. Cruelty is arising, and he sees those things rising up, and he sees them as harmful. And then he sees the opposites, these are right intention, the intention of renunciation, non-ill will or metta or goodwill, and harmlessness. So he divides them into um, two classes, and just sees the harm and what's not the non-beneficial. He sees the harm in the opposites of these, and he doesn't see any harm to himself or others. So this is a good sutta. What's inspiring about that is that the Buddha did see the harmful mental states rising in himself before his awakening. This was before he was a Buddha. So I would recommend that sutta for your further exploration of
Very useful.
Sama Sankapo.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were down to right speech. I just wanted to mention that because this is a good explanation of that. And you were saying about the aspect of each one of these musawada is false speech, and you can see the harm that false speech would lying is this is usually when you're keeping precepts, that's as the focus, but also the further purification of your speech to avoid harmful speech, malicious speech, the divisive speech, and the harsh speech. This is even though it may be truthful, how you approach another person, it can be harmful if you what is that?
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah, if you speak harshly, or if you speak divisively, even if it's what you're saying is true, but you're aimed at dividing people, you have to look for what's harmful and what's beneficial to yourself and others. And then sampapalapa, frivolous idle chatter, as Ayanika was saying, is just wasting our time. This is the harm, is we waste our time and other people's time. So what is right action? Samasankapo. And this is correct or wholesome conduct. Correct behavior, wholesome conduct. avoiding killing living creatures, stealing, and it says sexual activity, but I think that means avoiding activity that's any sexual activity that's harmful.
Oh,
But this is brahmacharya.
brahmacharya.
Oh, that's
it-
interesting. He's speaking to the monks.
Yeah.
So samma sankappo, yeah, for avoiding harmful activities, sexual activity, it's a uh, yeah. So for a lay person, the brahmacharya is not essential. Some people might choose uh, uh, brahmacharya celibacy, but that's not, it's more avoiding sexual activity that's harmful to others. So
Brahmacharya.
kame sumi chachara, yeah, that's what's avoiding um
Misconduct,
sexual misconduct, yeah. So this is avoiding harm physically to oneself or any living being. This is called right action. And right livelihood, sama ajivo. And it's when a disciple gives up wrong livelihood and earns a lively living by right livelihood. And this is quite, this is micha, wrong livelihood, having a wrong mode. You give that up if you had it in the first place. Bahaya is to give up. Jivikam is a livelihood. So they do a livelihood that is not harmful to any living being. And so basically, if you're keeping the precepts and you're not causing any harm, you're having an honest living that causes harm to no one. This is right livelihood. I think Bhante Bodhi says pretty much the same thing.
Yes. Abandoning wrong mode of livelihood, living by right livelihood. So, there are a number of suttas that list out wrong livelihood, and
I couldn't find one specifically. Do you know one off the top of your head?
I was trying to dig. I know that it lists it in Digha Nikaya number 2 for the monastics.
Yeah, I looked at that.
But there's an implication in there also about, like war, objects, selling objects of war, poisons, those kind of things are incorporated. But off the top of my head, no, I can't name the sutta that lists out things like don't do poison, don't sell people, don't kill, don't be a butcher. Yeah.
Anything that harms other living beings or harms oneself.
Yeah.
Anything that's dishonest. Any way you might be breaking the precepts.
Don't use weighted scales.
Yes.
If you're in the marketplace, and I think that's applicable in our own heart as we weigh things. It's like try to avoid, take it to another level. Try to avoid using a weighted scale as you interact with others. It's a tough one.
Yeah, so this dealing with honesty and also not judging harshly others. So what is right effort? Sama vayamo. Correct effort, right striving. In the Samyutta Nikaya, there's there's a whole section on right striving, and it's basically the same definition that we have here. It's SN 49 is a section on right striving. So it's when a mendicant generates enthusiasm, tries, makes an effort, exerts the mind, strives so that bad, unskillful qualities don't arise. So this is a four-part, this is the first of the four parts of right effort, fourfold right effort. So he's translated chanda here as enthusiasm. That's actually quite lovely. Here we have, he generates this janati here, is generate, produce, and then chandam. Chanda, this is a desire. It's a wholesome kind of desire. Desire for, wish for, intention, impulse, enthusiasm. That's quite lovely. But interest, I've also heard chanda as translated as interest. So makes an effort, exerts the mind and strives. So you generate it's like you're directing your mind, you're bringing up your interest, your enthusiasm, your desire in this wholesome way to make an effort to abandon. Oh, so that is preventing. This is preventing. This is preventing unskillful qualities. See, Chandam Janeti Vayamati. There's a Vayama right there. That's a verb form. Vayamati, Virya. So you also hear of energy. Here's energy. And Virya is also defined this way. And this is mind here, mind, heart. Arabati begins, it's initiating. So that's the energetic quality of it. To do this, these skillful behaviors of mind. So the first one is preventing or protecting the mind from unwholesome states. And then they generate enthusiasm, try, make effort, exert the mind, and strive so that bad, unskillful qualities that have arisen are given up. So that's the abandoning of the unwholesome state. So that's a second. So just the key way to remember is preventing the unwholesome states from arising. And if they do arise, then the abandoning of them. See. So padahati applies oneself, takes up. Okay. This is the unarisen, evil, unskillful, and this is qualities, non-arising. This is to prevent them from arising and then to abandon, giving up, just giving up, abandoning. And they generate enthusiasm, make effort, exert the mind, and strive so that skillful qualities that have not arisen, they generate enthusiasm, try, I see the wording here is a little different than I'm used to. Make an effort, exert the mind, and strive so that skillful qualities that have not arisen do arise. So not only are we preventing and abandoning, but we're bringing up skillful qualities. So qualities of loving kindness, qualities of clarity, wisdom. And then they generate enthusiasm, try, make an effort, exert the mind, strive, so that skillful qualities that have arisen are not lost, but increase, mature, and are fulfilled by development. So this is quite beautiful. So these all are mutually supportive. And do you want to read the Bhante Bodhi's translation of those?
With some modified words. Yes, right effort. One generates desire for the non-arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome states. One makes an effort, arouses energy, applies mind, and strives. One generates desire for the abandoning of arisen, evil, unwholesome states. One generates desire for the arising of unarisen, wholesome states. And one generates desire for the maintenance of arisen, wholesome states, for their non-decay, increase, expansion, and fulfillment by development. One makes an effort, arouses energy, applies mind, and strives.
So it's basically the same. So
it's the difference between enthusiasm and desire in the translation. And I think that that's just a matter of like how it hits the heart. For some reason, enthusiasm feels a little bit too
for you
for
anyway.
me, exactly. And desire somehow feels like that leaning in and toward. But when I actually look at the English dictionary, I resonate more with the definition for enthusiasm. So it's interesting how the words, change my physical alignment with the.
Yeah. Well, sometimes because we're hearing that desire or tanha is the cause of suffering, here we have, but chanda can be wholesome or unwholesome. So you can have Dhamma chanda, which is a
Exactly.
Desire for the Dhamma, or you can have Kama chanda, which is desire, sense desire. So it's talking about using a energy in a wholesome way. And I think
It's
enthusiasm was maybe Bhante Bodhi's way of trying to avoid the whole thing about, isn't desire something we want to avoid?
yeah, Bhante Sujato was the enthusiasm one.
I mean, Bhante Sujato, excuse me. Yeah, thank you for correcting me. But anyway, so
I like talking about the wholesome desires.
yeah, so it's yeah, directing your interest, your just putting that energy, bringing that energy in a wholesome direction, the channeling your energies.
That's exactly what I like about it. It's a directedness, a channeling, and there's some in Chando. There's something also about measuring. So it's with some sense of how much, which I think is really important for right effort.
So that's another thing, is that it's not too slack. The energy is not too tight and not too slack. So you have a balance of energy. And this is discussed in the suttas too, because you can exert yourself too much and wear yourself out and get frustrated and try to be too forced about it. Or you could just say, oh, it'll just come on its own. I don't really have to apply myself, or it's wrong to strive. It's wrong to push myself. So I'll just kind of kick back. Or I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing because I'm not supposed to be applying myself. Some people have that kind of quandary, like, well, what is it that we're doing? No, what do I just let my mind do whatever it wants to do? No, this is really clearly saying, with kindness.
Here, the concise Pali English dictionary translates the word the chandam, chando,
Mhm.
metrics and prosody, which is a word I had to look up.
Metrics and prosody.
I had to look prosody up. It also is your wish, your will, your impulse, the
Yeah.
desire part of it. But the prosody, what a great word. It's the patterns of rhythm and sound used in poetry. It's the pattern of stress and intonation in a language. I feel like that it gets to the nuances of refining our effort. Because it does, it feels like poetry when it's moving easily, suppressing what should be suppressed, growing what should be grown, uprooting what should be uprooted. How do you want to say, what's the flower analogy for the full blossoming is the last one?
Well, fruition.
Fruition, yeah. So then your garden bears fruit.
Your garden will bear fruit. So this is called right effort. So there's 4 parts of right effort. And that can be found, it's a supportive factor. Right effort is a supportive factor. And you have the wisdom of right mindfulness. Samasati. So samasati is defined here as when a mendicant meditates, observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, mindful, rid of covetous and displeasure for the world. They meditate, observing an aspect of feeling, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. They meditate, observing an aspect of mind, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. So we have kaya nupasi, observing the body. He's and here you have viharati, dwelling, atapi, ardent, sampajano. And this is clearly aware, knowing completely. This is an aspect, this is a supportive aspect for satima, which is interesting how they've mindful, fully present, attentive. And your training is a training. And this is the world. So you're training to be free. You're training free of these things. Free of covetousness for the world. So how does Bhante Bodhi translate that?
It's very similar, except the last part is covetousness and displeasure
Well,
in regard to the world.
But he doesn't say meditates, observing. Does he say that?
Dwells contemplating.
Dwells contemplating.
Dwells contemplating the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world. And the dwells contemplating the anupasi, it's the person itself. So the observer or one who contemplates is an anupasi, and what they're observing is one of these 4 foundations.
So basically the 4 foundations of mindfulness is right mindfulness. So you can see this is like the understanding, starting out with the understanding of the 4 noble truths as right understanding. and coming down here to right mindfulness. This is like, this is like the work, the complete work of what we're doing. And so it doesn't mean like if we haven't completely mastered the 4 foundations of mindfulness, we're not doing right mindfulness. And taking one aspect of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, or the practice of anapanasati, fulfills the 4 foundations or establishments of mindfulness. So don't despair. It's not like you're not doing the work unless you've completed the 4 foundations of mindfulness and mastered them. You're not doing it correctly. No, this is like what we're working towards. This is our perfection, you know.
Dwells contemplating, not has perfected the contemplation of.
And so if you're
Yes.
working on any aspect of this too, if you're working just with the mindfulness of the body and one aspect of that, you're still on the path, you're still working at it, you're still it may fulfill the whole thing because of the practice itself. It's so kind of self-fulfilling. So this is some sati. This is called right mindfulness and right samadhi, samma samadhi, right immersion. And I love this translation here, perfect stability of mind, correct mental composure. It's hard to have one word that encompasses what samma samadhi is, or what samadhi is. Collectedness of mind, perfect stability, mental composure. I think Bhante Bodhi has translated it as concentration. A lot of people rebel against that translation. So, and what is right immersion? It's when a mendicant, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unskillful qualities, enters and remains in the first absorption, which has rapture and bliss born of seclusion, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. I love this translation. This is Vitaka Vichara. Placing the mind is the Vitaka, and Vichara is keeping it connected. So the mind has pulled away from from the hindrances, and is able to enter into the first jhana, the first absorption. This is secluded from the sense pleasures and secluded from unwholesome states, and that's indicating the hindrances, the unwholesome qualities. Sa vitakam, sa vicharam. That's a vitaka vichara. Has Bodhi placing the mind, and I'm not Bhikkhu Bodhi, Bhante Sujato, and this yeah, vichara that's not a good translation there. So this is the keeping it connected is how he's translated it. As the placing of the mind and the keeping it connected are stilled. So this is when the vitaka vichara fade away. They enter and remain in the second absorption. The mind becomes more stable, peaceful. There's none of that subtle wavering. And rapture and bliss, which has rapture and bliss born of immersion. with internal clarity and mind at one, without placing the mind and keeping it connected. That's so beautiful. And that's the second jhana, the second absorption. With the fading away of rapture, they enter and remain in the third absorption, where they meditate with equanimity, mindful and aware, personally experiencing the bliss of which the noble ones declare, equanimous and mindful, one meditates in bliss. So there's a purity of the sukha has become, the piti is a little more physically energetic, and the sukha is a more pure pleasure. So that is the third absorption. And the equanimity is becoming more predominant. And then giving up pleasure and pain and the ending of former happiness and sadness, they enter and remain in the fourth absorption without pleasure or pain, pure equanimity and mindfulness. This is called right immersion. Would you please read the
right concentration? Secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, one enters and dwells in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thought and examination, with rapture and happiness born of seclusion. With the subsiding of thought and examination, one enters and dwells in the second jhana, which has internal confidence and unification of mind, is without thought and examination, and has rapture and happiness born of concentration. With the fading away as well of rapture, one dwells equanimous and mindful, and clearly comprehending. One experiences happiness with the body. One enters and dwells in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare, one is equanimous, mindful, one who dwells happily. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous passing away of joy and displeasure, one enters and dwells in the fourth jhana, which is neither painful nor pleasant, and includes the purification of mindfulness by equanimity. This is called right concentration.
sadhu, sadhu, sadhu? So you'll see in many of the suttas, when the Buddha is talking about the gradual path, you purify your ethical conduct, and you guard the sense gates, and you're moderate in eating and sleep, and so there's this gradual path, and then you abandon the hindrances, and then you enter into the four jhanas, and then after that, the insights arise. So the capacity to have deep, penetrating insight that leads to full awakening is usually in the suttas, follows the practice of the jhana, these four jhanas, a sama samadhi. So it's an essential aspect of the path, and as you can see, this is each jhana has a deeper and deeper level of bliss. And we were in conversation yesterday with somebody about whether in Theravada Buddhism that bliss was like kind of not a essential part of it, and it actually is. It's one of these one of the path factors. So that is the reading for now. Should I close this now? Is that enough, or do we
Shall I
want to
answer the chat questions?
Okay, well, look at there's 4 questions in the chat.
One of the first one's just a statement of resonance.
Okay, let's see. So I see it. Idle chatter. Yeah, it says idling the engine is wasting gas. So we're just kind of
Blah, 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 blah.
useless gas coming out of our mouth if we're not. And Holly says, I like the grass word. Oh, grass. Oh, I think it's gas.
No. This is
Grass?
Sampapalapa.
Sampapalapa.
So palapa, one of the definitions is the chaff from like of corn, or so it's the rough part, the useless part of the grain.
Okay.
And I'm just guessing that Bhante Sujato or whatever dictionary who pulled that from is creating some sort of, maybe it appears elsewhere, some sort of term, talking grass. It has to do with the frivolousness of the external casing as far as nutriment from the grain is how I understand that.
Oh, okay. The
I was
grass.
thinking of a field of grass rubbing together all these useless chatter voices,
Oh,
but this
that's
is the
okay.
Oh my
wheat
goodness.
and chaff.
Okay, so the chaff is like rubbing against each other and it's making a lot of noise, like in the wind, blowing in the wind. Is that? Yeah, okay.
It
Uh,
can make quite a racket too,
yeah, so
definitely.
so it's just kind of a lot of useless noise.
Mm-hmm.
That's what and oh, the weighted scale. Yeah, so
Right livelihood.
so for the right livelihood, you're supposed to have the honest weights and measures. So in the time of the Buddhists, some people were dishonest and they would weight things in their favor. So you could put the weights on and you're measuring out something else out. And it seems like the person is getting more than they actually are that they're selling, somehow they've made the weights in favor of the seller. And so you had something to say about
Well,
that, about
yeah, so like taking this to another level, for right livelihood, a lot of times in our modern world, it's a matter of are we getting equitable pay for equitable work? These are important things for our well-being. But to set that aside and put the comparing mind out of it, I found was really helpful. So as I went into was planning to go into monastic life, I still had a job. And I actually was it was blessed to be at a state where I had enough money to get me through. But I still had a contract, so I wanted to honor it, but it was difficult. And so I went to my Buddhist teacher, and Mark suggested that I look at my offering as dana, and that I look at what I was received as dana. And so the measure I put on offering of dana is very different. It's from what resources I have. And I was kind of chomping back on my resources to be able to give, because I was putting it in a transactional language. And so it was really helpful for me to approach livelihood by stop doing this balancing of scales things, throwing out the conceit of better or less than, and to start to do work from the heart. And that, of course, took me and my family or whatever into account as well. So I didn't over offer, and I also wasn't stingy with my work. It was just a new way of looking at livelihood for me. It's not directly associated with the list of harmful activities. That's why I'm saying it's taking it to a different level of refinement. So it's not the list of don't do's. This is more like a mindfulness, opening heart practice that I added for my livelihood.
oh, thank you for that. So it's just a different use of the term of weights and measures.
Yes.
The actual, the original idea is to honest, that it's honest that you're
Absolutely.
what you're, and you can, what you're giving, you're actually giving too,
Mm,
you know,
mhm.
would be, I guess, one way of looking at it. And then there's another one, the deeper releasing of states of Sama Samadhi is the place outside the prison.
I think Holly might have to give a little more context for that to make global sense.
It was the reading translation of Mahabua, where he focused on a talk on the prison we have inside ourselves that we don't even know we're in a prison, and that the meditation, the Buddhist path, enables us to see an area of peace outside the prison. This analogy has been used for decades or eons. That if you don't know there's something outside, then you're just in the dark, and all you know is the dark.
Oh, thank you.
And so
Yeah.
I was seeing that in these, I was seeing that in these descriptions of Sama Samadhi, and my own experience that when I get to some good Sama Samadhi, I feel free and released
Mm.
and bright.
Yeah. So the whole path is of letting go, of relinquishing, of so it's freeing ourselves because we are trapped by what we hang on to. So if we're hanging on to sense pleasures, or hanging on to the hindrances of which protect this sense of self and this our pursuit of sense pleasures, and that's the first letting go is of the hindrances, and even to enter the samadhi, and then each samadhi as we progress, as a person might progress, is a letting go, a releasing of our heart. So I think that's maybe what you're seeing, that relinquishing, that releasing, that wasaga. So I think we're up with the time just about.
Wow. Well, you covered 8 folds of the path, of course.
Yeah. So I encourage you to continue to consider these the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the way to freedom, that freedom that we wish for, and freedom from suffering, and freedom from what binds us to this samsara. So thank you all for your kind attention.
All right, so do the, I saw stop share and then stop video. It's down on the dot.
Hmm?
Dot, yeah. More.